So far we discussed about two factors which are affecting the risk structure of interest rate. The first factor was default risk and the second factor was liquidity. Now we want to discuss about the third factor, which is tax consideration. Again, you want to compare two kinds of bonds. The first kind of bond is the municipal bonds, which is issued by local or state governments, and the other one is the treasury bills, which is issued by federal government, and we say that this is the default-free bonds. So for municipal bonds, the history has shown that the state or the local governments of different various parts of the US specifically, they have the history of defaulting on the bonds. So that's why what we know is that we want to compare these two bonds. So this kind of bonds is relatively riskier compared to this kind of bonds. So what we expect about the interest rate of these two bonds, we expect that the interest rate of the municipal bonds should be higher than the interest rate of the treasury bonds. But what the real data and the real example is showing is that the interest rate of municipal bonds is lower than the treasury bonds. So we want to know that why. While the situation is in a way that these bonds are riskier, and based on the previous discussion that we had, we expect that the riskier bond, the interest rate should be higher. So why in this scenario the municipal bonds are riskier and yet their interest rate is lower than the treasury bonds? So that's why the third factor is coming into the picture, which is the income tax consideration. We know that, let's start with this example that we are earning very high, we are in the high income brackets, that we are supposed to pay the 40% of income tax. So it means that for every 10, for example, dollar extra that we are earning on the bond, so we have to pay $4 of that as a tax, and only $6 is remaining for us. So now imagine that the situation that this for the treasury bonds, whatever you are earning, you have to pay the tax for that, but the municipal bonds are in a way that they are tax exempted. So it means that whatever you are earning, even if you are in high income brackets and you are supposed to pay the tax, but if you buy this kind of bonds, then it is tax exempted. So whatever you are earning on this, it will be neat for yourself and you don't need to touch, you don't need to pay anything as a tax. So we can start with this example that, let's say that, for example, we have a bond with face value of 1,000, for example, and then if the treasury bonds are, for example, the interest rate of the treasury bonds here on 10%, and the interest rate of the municipal bonds, so I called IM, and then here I put IT. So here is 8%. So we want to compare that, how much is our income. If we buy these treasury bonds having the face value of 1,000, we are earning, for example, 100 in a year, and out of this 100, $40 we have to pay as a tax, and only, for example, $60 is remaining for us. In this situation, since it is tax exempted, if we buy the municipal bonds, the face value of 1,000, so we are earning $80, and this $80 is tax exempted. So the remaining amount for us here is higher than the remaining amount for us here. So now we want to know that, we want to show based on the graphical illustration that how this variety or this difference in interest rate is happening in these two bond in these two markets. Again, we start with demand and supply of the bond in these two markets, and then like the previous example, we imagine that in the initial level the price of the bonds in both markets are the same. It's making noise. Whatever I'm changing, the markers still are making noise. S, treasury, and then it is D, treasury. Here is the initial price of the treasury. So I assume that the price is the same at initial level, so it means that it is the price of municipal bond at initial level. So I draw demand and supply in a way that the price is remaining the same. This is SM. So since this market is tax exempted, so of course, since the earning, this example is showing you that the earning in this market is higher, so that's why the demand in this market is going to decrease. And the price is going to decrease. How about this market? The demand in this market is going to increase. And that's why the price in this market is going to increase as well. So now we know that with every price there is one associated interest rate. So interest rate, since price has decreased, interest rate in second situation has increased. And in this situation, since the price has increased, the associated interest rate has decreased. So that's why, that is justifying that why the interest rate of the municipal bond is lower than the interest rate of treasury bonds. So you can see again the change in the interest rate in these two markets. Do remember that in this scenario, since the change of interest rate is not associated with the default or with any risk, so that's why this difference in interest rate is not called risk premium. So only with this illustration we are showing, we are justifying that why the interest rate in this market is higher than the interest rate in the other market. But this difference is not showing the liquidity or premium risk. I hope that the topic is very clear. Thank you.